So Mars in Uttara Bhadrapada in Pisces Rashi. It's about the spiritual warrior going deep into the holes in our psyche and our mind so you can be strong, disciplined, and compassionate. So talking about Mars in Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra. So Uttara Bhadrapada is in Pisces. So Mars is that planet of fighting for our principles, having the discipline to fight for our principles, not just get frustrated because of our lack of discipline and lack of strength, but it makes us strong, so we're willing to sacrifice what's making us happy in the moment, and even what's frustrating us in the moment, to do what we know is right, and not just argue about what we think is right, try to tell other people what we think is right for them, try to correct others, and try to fight external battles. Mars is really the planet of fighting the internal battle, and that's what truly makes us strong. So when Mars, that energy of fighting our internal battles in order to be strong, is in the sign of Pisces, then it becomes an inner emotional struggle and an inner emotional battle and war and hopefully victory. It's literally the sign of like the spiritual warrior. Now, it could also be the spiritual warrior in Sagittarius, but Sagittarius is more the external warrior because it's also ruled by Jupiter, but it's a fiery quality of Jupiter through Sagittarius. Through Pisces, it's an inner spiritual warrior where we're fighting that war with our own emotions, or against our own emotions, I should say. Because it's really our emotions that make us weak. Again, that's not to say that emotions make us weak, but what I'm saying is that the feeling can make us just gravitate toward wanting to feel good rather than doing what we know is right. Certain planets and certain situations are designed to help us heal our emotions through nurturing and care, particularly the moon, Jupiter, Venus. But Mars is about fighting against the negative quality of the emotions, which make us immature and frustrated, for example. So Pisces is that spiritual warrior where, again, I should say Mars in Pisces is where that spiritual warrior really wakes up. And rather than being knocked around by the changing emotions and having those changing emotions divert us from our goal and from our disciplined sense of righteousness and right and wrong and the battles we're willing to go through in order to do what we know is right, which is Mars. Instead, when we feel that emotional stress, Mars says, okay, now I need to be disciplined and truly powerful and not just be triggered, not just lash out at others who I feel are making me weak, rather than getting into like passive aggressive or psychological manipulation. And these are things where Mars can be quite negative. When we're not disciplined and we don't feel strong and we don't feel courageous, we aren't able to handle that heat and discomfort and frustration of Mars, so we dump it on someone else. And we might try to, again, manipulate their emotions by like being the victim. Oh, you're hurting me, or you're doing this to me, in this kind of victim mode rather than being accountable. So Uttara Bhadrapada is the section of Pisces that is about transcendence on a very deep level, and especially going deeper into our psyche and into our psychology. Now again, of course, the nakshatras and the rashis are aligned. So, every text, it says Ashwini and Aries are at the beginning. So when you do that, then by the time you get to 3 degrees and 20 minutes of Pisces, Uttara Bhadrapada starts, right? Because it's the rashis and the nakshatras aligned. So Uttara Bhadrapada is from 320 Pisces to 1640 Pisces. So this quality of that nakshatra functions in the sign of Pisces. So Uttara Bhadrapada it literally means later auspicious foot or result. Pada is foot. It also means result. Bhadra is blessed or fortunate, and Uttara means later. So you have Purva Bhadrapada, which is earlier auspicious foot or result, and then Uttara Bhadrapada, which is later auspicious result. And so the symbol are the legs of a funeral cot, someone literally like on their deathbed. And so this is literally like where the soul has, not where the soul, where the body and the mind and the karmas and the samskaras in the mind and the attachment has gone to die. It's like the death of the ego is here. Purva Bhadrapada is where the ego starts to die, and Uttara Bhadrapada is where the ego is dead. It's trying to be the death of the ego. And then the last nakshatra, Revati, is when after there's death, then there's ultimate transcendence. So that last section of Pisces with Revati is related to the shepherd who just guides the soul home after the death of the ego. And so the nakshatra of Uttara Bhadrapada is the death of the ego. And it comes through this deity called Ahibudnya, which is one of the celestial serpents. The serpents of the deep was what it's called as well, where we go deep into the mind and consciousness. If you think of Pisces as like, water, then there's this oceanic depth, this depth of the ocean. And you think about that as the depth of your heart. And we live on the emotions, we live on the surface. We live on the surface of the heart. So the surface of our awareness and consciousness is just emotional. We feel triggered. We're happy. This makes me happy. This makes me sad. This is good. This isn't. This isn't good. And we live our life like we're on the surface, like on the surface of the water, like we're in a boat riding up and down on the waves. Good, bad. Okay, I want to keep finding things that are good, that I'm going to like, people that I like, things I like, because I need to be happy on the surface all the time. So we live on the surface all the time, and we wonder why we're shallow, because we're always on the surface. So this is the metaphor that I'm talking about with Mars, is the courage to go deep and not just remain on the surface. And so again, that quality of Pisces that's related to Uttara Bhadrapada is the depth to really go deep into the water, the serpent of the deep, to not just be on the surface and be triggered on the surface, but to go deep. And the deity Ahibudnya is like, you think of like a sea snake, and how a snake or a serpent can go down into a hole, go down into these holes in our psyche. So it doesn't just go down into the water, but it goes down into the holes and into those parts of our being that aren't healed. You think of these holes that you might have. Think of like a hole in your heart, a hole in your consciousness, where you're trying to fill it with something, or you're trying to plug that hole in your heart and that hole in your consciousness with something. Like maybe you're trying to fill that hole with food, or with attachment to something, or connection, or excitement, or fun, or sex, or something that you're trying to fill and feed that hole. It's one of the last parts where we're trying to heal our consciousness and heal our heart. And those holes that we're trying to fill, we experience them through the psychological and emotional pain that results. And again, that psychological and emotional pain and spiritual pain ultimately is what Pisces refers to. Again, those watery qualities of Pisces have to do with feeling. And so this nakshatra is very much about trying to heal those holes in our psyche. And again, when Mars is in Uttara Bhadrapada, we have the courage to ride that serpent, ride that snake into those holes in our mind and psyche and not be afraid of it. So this is what we mean by emotional courage or spiritual courage, because it takes courage. The reason people don't meditate and all of that is because it doesn't feel very good. It's hard. People think, oh yeah, I should meditate and I'll feel blissful. The only people who say that are people who've never really meditated much. That's not really what it feels like. It can, after a while, it can feel peaceful, but authentic meditation is often hard because we sit down and we try to meditate, and instead our mind is just a jumble of emotions and ideas, and we just realize, what a lunatic we are. It's painful, right? So it takes courage to push through that. And usually we don't do it until there's some kind of pain, some kind of struggle. And again, this is also related to Pisces, where we feel that pain of separation from our true self, the pain of separation from God, consciousness. And it often shows up first as the pain of separation from the people in our life, or from, from a higher beauty, from a higher cause, literally just disconnected from the universe itself, from the cosmos itself. And sometimes we actually feel it when we have a good connection to another person. Have you ever felt this? And most people have. Let's say you're in love with someone and you feel that ecstasy of being with them, and it's like, oh, this is so wonderful. And then the feeling changes and you're like, yeah, but this ain't it either. Oh. And you try to push it away like, no, I don't want to think of that, because I'm basing so much of my life on that, one day I'm going to be in love and I'll find a person and that'll be great. And we find the person and it feels great. And then the next moment it's like, and this ain't it either. This existential angst that feels terrifying and really tragic. It's almost like that thing we don't want to face, like, oh no, I'm never going to find happiness. I'm never going to be happy here on earth, ever. No matter what I do, I'll never be happy. And it's like, it's too painful to even think about. And it's nagging us all the time, this existential angst like of Pisces, where we know that this ain't all there is, but then what is there? What is it? And we hear of things like, oh yeah, okay, meditation, spiritual practice. These are the things I need to do. Okay, I'm going to try to do that. And then we try to do it, and it's like, God, this is more painful than anything. And it's a real kind of existential crisis that we can feel in Pisces. So we just want to block it out. We just escape from it. That's why Pisces is also a lot of escapism from that angst and that pressure. Because our soul is trying to merge with that great ocean beyond and surrender into the metaphysical. And Uttara Bhadrapada is that funeral cot. It's the place where the ego goes to die, where we understand, look, no matter what happens here, this ain't it. This body, mind, happiness, people, food, whatever it is, it's never going to be the thing. There's something transcendent. What is it? And when Mars is in Uttara Bhadrapada and in Pisces, there's courage to take that on and not just bypass it, and not just courage to take it on, but the discipline to then, walk the talk, not just think about it. Because again, what Mars really gives is, rather than spin out on the emotion and the feeling of it, is to be disciplined about it. And, you know, authentic discipline is about doing what we know is right, not just talking about it or thinking about it. We all know that we should be doing that. We all know that we should be meditating more and getting up early and eating the right food and doing the things that make us strong. We all know what those things are. We just don't do them. Why? Because it's hard. And it's hard in very specific ways, which means in the moment, those things don't make us so happy in the moment. We want to sleep a little longer. That's fun. That makes us happy. Bed feels so good. I'll keep sleeping a little longer. Again, that's Venus. I want to enjoy it. Mars says, I don't care if I enjoy it. Get up, because this is going to make me strong. It's the right thing to do. Mars is about what's right. Get up from the bed. It's the right thing to do. We eat, and we want to eat a little bit more. We want it to taste as good as it can. That's the Venus part. Mars says, yeah, but that's not really what food is for. Food should be fuel. It should make me strong, and that's the right thing to do. But again, it requires sacrifice. It's hard to do the right thing. It's especially hard to do the right thing when someone, let's face it, pisses us off a little bit, gets on our nerves. We know the right thing to do is don't react, don't go at them, but we want to. Because if I don't get it off my chest, then I'm carrying it around. I'm carrying around the frustration. But authentic power and strength is in being able to take that fire of frustration and, again, be more disciplined about it. Turn it into discipline. And once you do it, once you become more disciplined, you realize that it takes more effort and more energy to get upset. And your buttons won't get pushed as easily either. You build up a lot of resistance to getting frustrated and getting tweaked. And you've experienced this before. We all have. When we're in a place of feeling strong and powerful, it's much harder for other people to tweak you and to get under your skin and to knock you off balance. So these are the really powerful qualities of Mars in Pisces, and especially Uttara Bhadrapada is where that celestial serpent goes down deep into all of those holes in our psyche and those problems that we're trying to fill with other things. Instead, we ride that serpent down into those parts of our own consciousness. We have the courage to do that, and therefore, and thereby become more disciplined and authentically spiritual, like the authentic spiritual warrior who fights for the truth. And that doesn't mean fight some external enemy or fight some cause. The cause is the other thing I said. The real cause, and the only real cause, is self-knowledge and the liberation of the soul. Because whatever cause you're fighting externally, even if you win that battle, the second after you win, and you're like, good, I won that victory, the next moment is, and that ain't it either. Ugh. Isn't it? It doesn't matter. Any external victory or any external happiness that you get, you might enjoy it for 2 seconds if you're smart. If you're conscious and you're aware, you might enjoy it for a couple seconds, and then the next second you're like, okay, and that's not it either. Ugh. There's only one victory worth winning, and that's the ultimate one. So Mars gives us the courage to fight that good fight, and ultimately the compassion to not turn the fire of our anger and frustration onto others as well. So Mars in Uttara Bhadrapada Nakshatra in Pisces Rashi has a lot to offer and a lot of beautiful spiritual gifts. So if you like this video, share it with others and let them know as well.